As wrestling fans woke up on the morning of May 25th, 2025, there was just one question on their mind. Whether they were going to be in the Desert Diamond Arena or watching at home, they simply had one thing that they needed answered by the end of the night. Would it be all about Will Ospreay's ascension or Hangman Page's redemption? Well, unfortunately for Mr. Ospreay, it was about the latter. And at the end of the day, Will Ospreay was simply saying, "Cuss you, Hangman!" Brub. I'm John Renton with my review of AEW Double or Nothing 2025 from the Desert Diamond Arena in Glendale, Arizona. There's a lot to talk about, so I'm going to mention some facts and figures and then get into a few things, and then maybe just go full on nuclear about one particular thing. I wonder if you can guess what that is. That being said, there were things I liked on this pay-per-view. I will never discredit AEW for trying to give the fans a whole bunch of bang for their buck, but honestly, you could have cut 3 matches off this pay-per-view and it would have been fine. Anyway, so the building holds around 19,000. They had 8,000, 8,500 according to WrestleTix. The fans were making quite a bit of noise, at least for most of the night. I mean, they had a lot more energy by the end of that main event than I would have thought, because it's not even that late on the West Coast, and it's after midnight on the goddamn East Coast. So, this is the 6-year anniversary of the first ever Double or Nothing. That was back in 2019 at the Grand Garden Arena in Nevada. Paradise, Nevada, Vegas, whatever. Had around 11,000 people. 109,000 to 113,000 people bought on pay-per-view. Certainly not bad for the first ever AEW pay-per-view. Yes, of course, All In, had, I don't remember how much it was. It wasn't the first official AEW pay-per-view, but it laid the groundwork. And in 2020, that was the pandemic one, Daly's Place, so they didn't have anybody. But they did, anybody in attendance, that is. But they did have 115 to 120,000 people buy it on pay-per-view. I was one of them. Hated Stadium Stampede, more on that in a bit. Daly's Place for 2021. So they had a full house there and had about, 5,200 people. I think the place tops out at 5,500, but whatever. 135,000 to 150,000 bought on pay-per-view. Okay, good sign. And then back in Nevada for 2022 T-Mobile Arena, they had just under 14,500, 155,000 pay-per-view buys. And that's a big goddamn deal. That's the peak. You know why? Because Punk was on the card. And also, they actually layered some things pretty well. And in 2023, T-Mobile Arena returning once again, but they dropped about 4,000 in attendance because there was no Punk. And there were other issues. 140,000 pay-per-view buys. And then last year's at the Grand Garden Arena once again. 5 years after, and they dropped... they dropped only about 2,000, but still, they had about 133,000 pay-per-view buys. So, let's get into it. Why have a 90-minute buy-in if you're only going to have 1 or 2 matches? RJ City is fine. I'm annoyed with Renee, just her on-screen character. Apparently, they just gave up on Jeff Jarrett having a year of redemption. So we have Harley Cameron and Anna Jay against Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford. They have matching gear. Rumor has it that Tony Khan is going to create women's tag team championships. Unless he's going to give more time for the women's division every single week. And I don't know, find a way to get Ring of Honor some kind of deal that doesn't involve people going to Honor Club. Unless you're going to utilize your women's division better and the ones that are actually good, then tag belts are going to be a tough sell. So, they need to invest in better spray tanning. The company, I mean, because it's ridiculous. It's very distracting. Not just for the women, but for everybody. Okay, so for what it was, this basically was just a collision match that they put on the buy-in. Harley and Anna have good chemistry. Megan is talented. Penelope is also there. Penelope has been wrestling for a number of years. I know she had a break for a bit. She's never gonna end up getting any better. I'm sorry. Harley ends up pinning Penelope Ford. There we go. Let's move on. So, why is Alex Marvez still there? He's not good at this. He is terrible at doing interviewing. Dustin feels that they have a chance. No, you don't. The fuck? You have Sammy Guevara as your goddamn tag team partner. You might as well have a goddamn, piece of foreskin that gains sentience. It'd cause less trouble. So anyway, Archer showed up and I just said, chokeslam RJ, and Renee threw a table. Archer, what's wrong with you? I feel bad for Archer because he had one of his cars stolen and it was stripped for parts. I hope Tony Khan was able to comp him. Not that it was Tony Khan's fault, but Khan's got enough money and Archer has certainly put up with a lot of shit there. But I just hope that Archer's doing well. Because hell of a goddamn talent. I'm just glad he was able to be here. Cutting surprisingly good promos. They even referenced the time that Archer as Dallas in TNA. Yes, his name was actually Dallas. And his name was Lance Hoyt. Vance Archer was a worse name, but that being said, I mean, I know it's Lance Archer, but Lance sounds cool. Vance doesn't. And then A.R. Fox. I can't do it like Derb did. Commander, Hologram, and it is Bandito. Against Rocky Romero, Trent, who has apparently had 2 neck surgeries and apparently has cut off any remaining brain capacity that he had because he's an idiot and a dipshit and, quite frankly, is useless. Speaking of useless, here's Lio Rush and Action Andretti. Why is Lio Rush not on the other side with the fans where he belongs? Then again, they'd have to get him a booster seat. This match was added last minute. I also added last minute chores to my plans for the day because I had to do a few things and I have paid attention to this, but why? Why would I care? Why are there 2 children in the ring? Why is any of this going on? Why is Rocky Romero being mixed up in this stuff when he has talent? They botched quite a bit because everybody was going 100 miles an hour and people say, oh, well, that happened in the WCW Cruiserweight multi-man matches. The difference is more people watched that shit and these people actually had better experience. And also those matches only went about 8 to 10 minutes. So, multiple synchronized spots and Bandito pinned somebody. I don't know who. I don't care. So, I hope Action Andretti is alright because apparently he did get busted open. His nose got busted open. Commentaries by Excalibur, Taz, and Shivani. And I'm going to say right now, Shivani needs to be the interviewer. Get Caprice Coleman and Ian Riccaboni doing commentary. Excalibur is in over his head. Have Taz do it. I would like to apologize as I continue if I still sound a little bit rough. Unfortunately, I'm still dealing with, after effects of a few things and stuff like that. I'm trying to tough it out. And for those that reached out to me, knowing last week I had some rib issues when something popped in my back, shall we say, doing something routine because getting old sucks. Don't worry, I'm better. Still a little sore. It is what it is. So, Excalibur, Taz, and Shivani on commentary, as I said. They had 8K being pretty loud. And we start off with Jamie Hayter, a.k.a. Emma Peel, a.k.a. Daphne, versus Mercedes the Puppet. Look, Mercedes in the ring is about as back as she's ever going to be. I don't ever want to hear this dumb bitch talk unless she actually wants to talk normally. And I don't think it's a character. That alleged text scam that she's doing to text her and stuff like that is probably going to be AI. It's stupid. Stop trying to grift your goddamn fans. So it is an Owen Hart women's final match. The Owen Hart women's final match. Now, despite what I said about Mercedes, this is a pretty good match. They started slow, nice wrestling at first, knee targeting by both. They took it seriously. Hayter, this is the best Hayter has looked in months. And I mean in the ring. Mercedes hit a Meteora to the floor. That looked pretty brutal. Bad landing for both of them. And a camel toe clutch by Monet. That is the last time I will make a bad joke. And got some... There was a bad spot where Hayter a little bit later tried to do a jump spot on the steps and kind of stumbled. Thankfully, she's okay. That could have been rough. Eddie Chance after the Three Amigos. Big lariat by Hayter. So they're doing some good stuff. Yeah, and they're cooking, as the kids say. And the statement maker was locked on very briefly, and then they were trading back and forth. I noted they were going too long, and that's going to be a trend with this. They could have cut some of these matches by up to 10 minutes. I'm not saying cut this match by 10 minutes. There's another match I'll get to here in a minute. But there are many matches they could have cut by 5 to 10 minutes, and it would have been fine. They wouldn't have needed that extra half-hour pay-per-view runtime. But, excuse me. Meteor for 2. And then we got some good counters. We got a choke by Jamie, who would not want to be choked by a beautiful woman like that. I'm fine. I'm fine. A roll up for 2. And another statement maker. Kicked off the ropes. That was a nice little, callback to other spots that Mercedes did with Bayley. Mercedes got lifted up. Knee drop. We got a lariat for 2. The crowd was up for it. Big tombstone. But then a spike DDT into an inside cradle. 1, 2, 3. Mercedes got the victory. I'm sorry, Mercedes did not need this. I think Hayer needed it. I knew Mercedes was going to win it. But it's getting ridiculous now. Like undefeated streaks and everything. And I mentioned that one point, and somebody on social media said, well, Goldberg had one. The difference is Goldberg drew money. And Mercedes kind of turns people away. But whatever, it is what it is. Good opener, though. Good opener. And then we get to FTR with a child. I'm sorry, children grow up. Stokely didn't. Against Nigel and Garcia. Okay, stop with Garcia. Stop it. Just fucking stop it. He is never going to be ready. He is not good enough to be anything other than mid-card. It's not that he doesn't have an inspirational story, but they're force-feeding it. They're trying to make it like where he has long competitive matches and he fights back and it's going to work. It hasn't worked in 3 years. I know he's been with the company longer, but come on. Anyway, Nigel competed against him, and this is all because FTR attacked Shivani and then goaded Nigel into being in the match because they attacked Garcia. This should have been on Dynamite. This was 22 to 23 minutes and should have been 11. God damn it. They targeted Nigel for a while. FTR then called Shivani, I think Cash Gun Wheeler called Shivani an old fuck. And a rebound clothesline by Nigel. They tagged in Garcia, but then, my God, they had Menard and Stokely fighting. Mom, the midgets are fighting again. At least Menard wasn't on commentary, because I might have actually just said, I hope a sandstorm hits the goddamn arena if that's the case. So, multiple superplexes. Danny did one, got up, did another one to Dax, and Dax went along with it. And then they did the powerplex thing, because Dax countered one, and it looked like Cash really hurt his knee. And then we got a Tower of London outside. We got more shit going on. Shivani tried to check on Nigel, and then we got more of this stuff. And a stuffed pile driver and a foot on the rope. And then Garcia passed out in the sharpshooter. Just stupid. Stupid. It's not gonna work. Anyway, I don't mean to get mad about this, but spending $50 on these pay-per-views and then seeing the stuff that does not need to go that long. This could have easily been on Dynamite. I still would have been upset if it had gone 22 minutes on TV, but Jesus. For this, 23 minutes for this. An ambulance arrives to hopefully take Ricochet to the hospital to get a personality transplant. But first we have Mark Briscoe and Ricochet in a stretcher match. Stretcher? Hell, we damn near killed her. But there's bald chance, and I have a question. Why is there a stretcher match going on here? It's the first ever stretcher match in AEW history, and it feels pointless. Look, there were spots that might have worked. Mark Briscoe is a non-Eddie, all due respect to him. He's willing to take crazy bumps, and he's somehow still able to be okay. Ricochet, bless him, is trying really hard to channel Andrew Tate. Thankfully, does not have the same problems as him. He does hang out with people that have the same problems as Andrew Tate, Chase and Rance. And Ricochet needs to be, ridiculed for that until he explains himself. But alcohol in the eyes, and then we shine the head and everything, and it's like the monkey with the cymbals and Homer's head. And Mark was bleeding a lot because he either bladed too deep or hard-weighed himself too deep. All I know is he's trying to keep all the blood in his head, but he's going under. And then he hit a froggy bow through the table, and then more blood. My God, he was bleeding. I hope Mark Briscoe's okay. Oh, wait, don't worry. They scissored too hard. There was another pair of scissors in the ambulance, and Mark got hit with the spirit gun and got thrown in the goddamn thing. Did I skip over stuff? Yeah, I fucking did. You know why? Because it's an ambulance stretcher match that really doesn't mean anything. By the way, they really should have just called this an ambulance match, but maybe WWE has a patent on it. So they break legs, they break arms, they cash checks, they hurt people. It's time to hurt some particular individuals by inflicting pain upon them. As a Hurt Syndicate, Lashley and Benjamin, along with MVP and MJF, took on Dustin and Sammy for the AEW tag titles. It should have been 5 minutes. They should have pinned Sammy, and they should have sent him home to his stupid wife. The Syndicate are very over. MJF tries to help. Lashley gets upset at him, but that's all just a ruse, a flim-flam, a bamboozle. Dustin stops the interference later. Gets hit with a spear through the barricade. And Lashley high-fives him. And they do the botch rope stop spot with Sammy. I can't decide who mistimed that. And a kick, 1, 2, 3. That's it. That's all I got to say about this match. Nothing against the Hurt Syndicate, but they need to build up a tag division, an actual tag division that does not include the Bucks because they're terrible. Just do something. Build up good tag teams. Because having Dustin go out there and have a handicap match because Sammy is doing the same shit he did 6 years ago, and it doesn't mean anything. Speaking of not mean anything, Sleepy Okada against Speedball Mike Bailey. Continental Championship match. Kick, punch, it's all in the mind. Oh, look, Rick Knox is the referee, so nothing's going to get enforced because he's the worst fucking referee in the goddamn world. Kicks, and I miss when Okada took his matches seriously. Sure, he hit a few spots. And I don't expect him to deliver 5-star matches all the time. But I'm done with Okada. Yeah, him and Omega will try to do a few callback spots at All In, but it's going to be something where we need to temper our expectations. So, lots of kicks, a knee drop, more kicks, a lariat, a mid-air drop kick, and then, Rainmaker. There you go. That's what Okada did. Okada won. Moving on. Toni Storm against Mina Shirakawa. Mina dances very well. Very, very well. Very, very well. And she actually can work. She targeted the knee well. Toni Storm and her had a nice little match here. Toni was dressed up like a flapper girl from the 1920s. That's not a euphemism. That is not a misogynistic term. Google flapper girl. Maybe make sure your safe search is on. Do not refer to that flapping. But that being said, again, I apologize. Still feeling a little bit rough. So, she attacked the weak point for massive damage. And they tried to do the UK stuff. Oh, Toni Storm. So, Toni hurt her knee badly. I think at one point it's like, God damn it. So hopefully she's alright. Mina low blows Luther and then dives on him. Why can't that be me? I'll take that. So, good counters. They were doing well. This wasn't as good as Hayter versus Mercedes, but I think for the fact that these two have faced off before, I think they did pretty well. So, a figure 4 with a bridge. God, that's a nice bridge. And roll-ups and a Storm Zero, 1, 2, 3. So, good stuff. Well wrestled. It certainly was better than the last few matches that we had. And a show of respect, and then suddenly they kissed, and okay, are they going to reenact anything from the least Portrait of a Lady on Fire? I hope so. All right. So, here we go. It is Swerve coming out in dollar store Spirit of Halloween Predator gear. And then we have, the fuck else do we have? We have Kenny Omega. We have Willow Nightingale. We have the OPPs without Samoa Joe against the Death Riders. Marina Shafir in raccoon makeup straight out of the Ronda Rousey playbook. Dick the Boozer. We have Claudio. We have Wheeler Yuta, who he doesn't even deserve to be among the fans. So I bet that hair smells rank. Probably doesn't even know how to wash it. I bet he's a clueless fuck who doesn't understand how to do that. And we have the Bucks. And don't worry, we're going to have other incendiary people here. But we have Anarch Queef in the arena. The fuck did you think I thought of this? How do you think I felt about this motherfucking atrocity? Fire everybody that came up with this goddamn thing. Seriously, fire them. goddamn, Tony Khan needs to be put on trial for some of the shit that he has done to professional wrestling. Because if WWE is going to get so much hate for having so many evil people involved or some of the stuff that they do, guess what? This is just as embarrassing. You know why it's embarrassing? There's nothing wrong with having an all-out brawl and everything and having people go nuts and do weapon spots and whatever. This is 45 minutes with entrances. 35 minutes of this mind-numbing shit when they ran out of stuff to do within the first 10. If you have a match like this, don't have it go so goddamn long that you put 2 other matches basically given the impossible task of following this. And also it involves the Bucks, 2 of the worst wrestlers that have been on God's green earth in the last 15 years. You can like the Bucks all you want. I don't care if you like the Bucks. Jon Moxley has been one of the worst wrestlers of the last year. Claudio is a non-entity. Marina Shafir should be at home or, I don't know, going to PTA meetings or something, doing something other than trying to wrestle on a national stage. Willow Nightingale got her money. I don't know what Swerve's costume was supposed to be. Kenny Omega had a Captain America thing with his, Omega symbol there. Oh, and Samoa Joe showed up during this whole damn thing. Showed up in the crowd and attacked Claudio. And I mean, all due respect to Joe, I love Joe, but how does Joe sneak up on anybody? So, the Death Riders are in the crowd, better than Ghost Riders in the sky. I would have rather had the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse. But the Bucks get a Founding Fathers entrance. Yeah, it's kind of fitting that these stupid Bible-thumping fucks would actually, have this kind of thing, having that kind of complex. They really think that they actually were able to change the game in wrestling. They get less and less of a reaction every single time. I was at Wrestle Dream. They barely got a reaction. Also, I'm going to blame them for the downturn in crowd. But they got that, and yeah, they don't deserve this. They don't. They don't. They might have helped initially get the push for AEW, but name after, say, that match against the Lucha Bros, I think it All Out 2021. Name the last good thing they did. The trios matches against the Death Triangle, Along with Omega, please. They don't mean shit. So, they were then playing the marching theme. The Bucks marching theme and everything, Yankee Doodle Dandy. Which I felt like being in front of a firing squad rather than continuing to watch this. And then Omega gets on the mic and cuts that and says, no, let's have something else. And then they play, I'm So Excited by the Pointer Sisters. It was the theme for Dynamite for a week or 2. I think it was for the Max debut and whatever. But then, and I love this song, or at least I did. He says, oh, let's go 2000s alternative rock. They start playing Bodies. Let the bodies hit the floor. Let the bodies hit the floor. I wish some of these bodies would have hit the floor, not gotten back up. Hopefully, in front of their families, and then have the families hit the goddamn floor. And I know that maybe I'm taking it a little bit too seriously, and maybe I'm getting a little too fired up. And yes, in my mid-40s, you would think after watching wrestling for just over 40 years, you think that I would know what I'm getting into. And yes, to an extent, I knew what they were going to do. Now, nobody got set on fire, which it's unfortunate Jack Perry didn't actually get set on fire for what he's done to this company. And he hasn't been back for a while, and that's a good thing, because I don't want to see him back, and I want to see some of the people involved in this. I don't want to see any more of the people involved in this. I'm debating whether I want to go to Wrestle Dream if they're going to have it back in Washington State. Knowing my luck, they'll probably have it in Portland, and then I won't have to go. I'm not going to the shows in Kent, not after this goddamn slop, and I could still get some pretty damn good tickets for Collision and possibly Dynamite. So, do you really expect me to analyze this whole goddamn thing? This was embarrassing, and I didn't even expect much from it, but I knew because Moxley refuses to have a good match, Claudio could mean something, Marina Shafir is absolutely putrid. I hope she raises her kids better than she wrestles because good God. And Wheeler Yuta, you need to go home and do something else. Just do something else. Go do computer programming or something, assuming you can see the screen through your goddamn hair. And the Bucks just need to not be on this television program anymore. So Mox has a fork. Hobbs is bleeding, and they tried to give Hobbs some spots later to justify this stuff, and it didn't work. But let the bodies hit the floor. So Bodies by Drowning Pool. Looped 4 times. 4 times. That song is what, 3.5 minutes? Close to 4? So, this, by the way, again, 45 minutes with entrances. The entrances were about 10 minutes or just a little over, so this was 35 minutes. So about half the goddamn, show, or half the goddamn match was covered by music. So we go outside with the women, and look, I'm glad they got women involved. I just wish they would have gotten Willow involved with a better opponent, because Willow, bless her, is only able to do so much when you are working with a goddamn, inverted little chestnut right there. Marina Shafir sets wrestling back every time she even tries to breathe on a wrestling program. And I know she wrestles in independent promotions, even the one in Seattle. Great. Wrestle in front of small crowds because they're a lot more forgiving. So anyway. And then at one point Yuta gets stuffed in the trash, which is appropriate, by the way. That's where the motherfucker belongs. Shibata then tries to put barbed wire around his shin to kick Yuta on a chair. There's a bunch of shit going on here. And then somebody gets shoved into an empty speaker, which stops the music. Serpentico apparently did tweet that he was hiding somewhere, and he says, I am not okay. I will admit that's fine. I don't follow Serpentico, but the AEW on TV Twitter account reposted it. And then the broken cases that were clearly empty boxes because we can't manufacture stuff properly. Tables break everywhere, and all these spots are happening, and motherfuckers just don't care. Willow then gets chained via her ear hoop, or lobe loop, or whatever, via a big old chain with a padlock on there, so she's nullified for a bit. And then Omega's, doing his stuff. One of the Bucks hurts himself on doing a dive. Because you're not 30 anymore and you can't do this shit. Go home and be a family man. God, one of them reproduced, and it's so goddamn disgusting. So, Nana brings out a forklift, and Swerve dives right on the Bucks. Eventually, it's a Swerve on a forklift match. But he has to take a bit to gain his footing, so the Bucks have to stand there looking like bigger idiots than normal. And Hobbs had to get out of the way once he knew the Swerve was going to be alright. He's like, I'll get out of the way here. And then Willow finally gets freed. This is after Hobbs has hit a few spine busters. And no-sells a couple chair shots, including one from Shafir, where they should have just shoved a chair right into her face. Not that it would have hurt her. She didn't have a fucking brain up here. Roddy needs to sit his woman down and say, don't do this anymore. And I don't care if that gets me hate. You need to tell people and show tough love when you can't do anything. And Yuta, get the fuck out of this wrestling business. They have tried with Garcia, they have tried with Yuta, they have tried with so many people when they could have pushed Hobbs, they could have pushed so many other people that are actually worthy, that are actually good. But no, let's push these little string beans. Let's push these people that have no personality at all. And Yuta offends me more because he has been, you gotta have a lackey is what some people have said. And that's true, you gotta have a lackey. Claudio might as well be the goddamn lackey because he barely wins anything. I thought Eddie Kingston was going to return, but he didn't. Hopefully he's alright. But then they do a bunch of staple gun stuff. And even Marina staples Swerve's tongue. If you like this, by the way, great. I don't care if I offend you really at all, but I question what the fuck's going on with you. And I bet there are some people that I could talk to at the wrestling show. Some people that I have talked to at indie shows that really like this. That's great. Hardcore and deathmatch wrestling is not wrestling, but you can like it all you want. So, yeah, staple Swerve's tongue. Marina Shafir should try stapling her goddamn lips shut. Which lips? I'll let you decide. So, Knox got super kicked. God, I hope he never gets back up. No, just seriously, put him in a fucking medically induced coma and give him a brain transplant like they gave to Shibata, and maybe he'll actually act like a human. So a tombstone for 2. And then Hook shows up, hits Claudio with a golf club, looks at Joe and says, and then leaves. Thanks for coming, Hook. And then Gabe Kidd shows up. Why does Gabe Kidd always act like he's on copious amounts of crack? What is wrong with Gabe Kidd? Oh, I know. He likes to defend sex pests. Which I would say, by the way, from the guardrail to him. I would say that because evidence is right out there. Oh, you don't know these people. Yeah, well, Gabe, apparently you like to defend the wrong people. That's why you're in New Japan and why you're only making appearances in AEW and why it is possible, and I'm willing to be corrected, that Mariah May might not come back. Now, maybe she will. But if Gabe Kidd's there, I don't think that's going to work out too good. But then, a choke and Joe stops this stuff and a bunch of tables, are getting broken. Omega gets tacks put in his mouth and we get the trigger and a swing and all this stuff going on. And the ambulance is back. Hopefully to take every goddamn person, including Tony Khan, and put him in a padded room. Here's Mark Briscoe. So that proves right there that the match really wasn't all that vicious. And bless Mark Briscoe, he's a tough guy. I mean, I feel so bad for him dealing with the death of his brother Jay, but come on. In the wrestling context, come on. He dives and just does this stuff, so everybody just gets involved in this. They lock some of the Death Riders of people in the goddamn ambulance. Quite frankly, that is where Yuta belongs, because, well, actually anybody that wants to push Yuta belongs in there, because they're sick freaks. And then Swerve gets his new sneakers that have tacks on them. One Wing Angel off the stage through an exploding table while Swerve hits a Swerve Stomp with some tacks and pins one of the Bucks. I don't even know if I want to watch this week's Dynamite. I mean, I might because I actually am going to be able to watch it live, but embarrassing. Completely embarrassing. So, following that was the Paragon, Kyle O'Reilly, Atom Cole Bebe, Roddy Strong against Takeshita, Kyle Fletcher, and Josh Alexander. After all this, they do this. You could have seriously put this on fucking Dynamite. I mean, I'm sorry. You just could have. Just give Fletcher the TNT title when he faces Cole. Archer's on commentary. Kyle pins Kyle. I think he pinned Kyle. Fletcher pinned O'Reilly. And then more run-ins because we needed Trent on this show again. And then suddenly Brody King, Tomohiro Ishii, and Tanahashi show up. Tanahashi will not wrestle in the U.S. anymore, but he is going to be at Forbidden Door, which is in London. Fyter Fest tournament where 3 will face off with Kenny Omega, or Kenny Omega will face 3 people. It's Claudio versus somebody, I think Commander, Hechicero versus Masakara Dorada, and Josh Alexander versus somebody. I don't remember who. So it's probably going to be Josh. It's probably going to be Hechicero and Claudio. So, whatever. Hangman gets a reflection-themed deal where he's looking at a crib, the chain that he hung Swerve with. All that. They're putting a lot of thought into this. I'll give them that much credit. And then Stars, we get the Stars and stained glass for Ospreay. Will Ospreay versus Hangman Page. Owen Hart men's final match. It was a proper main event. I think it still went a little bit long, but it was a proper main event. It certainly was a better match than what the fuck we got with Queef in the arena. See, this would have even hit harder an hour ago. Like, if they had cut out the 6-man tag and, say, FTR and Garcia and Nigel and just put that on Dynamite, gold. You still would have given people their goddamn money's worth. So, started slow. Ospreay ended up kind of hurting his back, doing a forearm. That kind of played into a little bit of stuff going on. Hangman was more methadactyl and was doing some stuff. Sasuke special by Will. He was doing his usual spots. Hangman did the Ori Horror Moonsault, or whatever the hell Excalibur says. And then they attack the back for massive damage. A lariat and then a high kick. So we're getting back and forth counters here. Big Spanish Fly. 1 buckshot. Second one gets stopped. And then a shooting star press for 2. And Angel's Wings by Page. We get a hidden blade. And then Page rolls out. That's fine. That's a good way to protect the finish. More on that in a minute. And then the battle in the apron. No count. Bryce just looks like, oh, I really should count. But God, I'm just so conflicted. Apron bomb. A Styles clash to the floor. I was really worried that Hangman was going to tuck his chin there. Os Cutter for 2. Hidden Blade for 2. And then Os strikes. He's beating him into the goddamn ground, into the apron. Bangs his head off the goddamn announcer's table. More heelish, and then we suddenly get a battle, and then the Deadeye attempt, but the table collapses, and it looked like Will landed right on his goddamn head. Thankfully, he seems okay. Not that you can really tell, but it seems like Will's okay. Who will hit the finish first? Will has the pad off, and Hangman has the buckshot, and Hangman hits the buckshot. 1, 2, kick out, and then suddenly, oh my god, a Hidden Blade and a Stormbreaker for 2. Okay, now it's starting to get, yeah, they're getting the shootout mentality, but still. And then Will's getting ready, and he hits the V trigger, and he goes for the one-wing angel, but then it gets countered into swerves. Big pressure by Hangman, because they know their opponents, they know each other's moves. And then suddenly, we get just a little more action, and then we get that big buckshot. 1, 2, 3, big pop. Hangman wins, confetti, all that. Good. They'll do this celebration with Dr. Martha Hart on Dynamite, I assume. There you go. It's a long video. Anyway, I'll see you later. You guys take care. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Rickland. I'll see you soon.